A lot of people woke up today feeling like something big is happening, and that feeling isn't coming out of nowhere. There's a noticeable shift in the way XRP is being talked about, watched, and analyzed across the crypto space right now. Not because of hype alone, not because of rumors, but because multiple signals are starting to line up in a way that has caught the attention of long-term observers, institutions, and everyday investors alike. This isn't about overnight price predictions or quick wins. This is about momentum, structure, and movement that has been building quietly and is now becoming impossible to ignore. For a long time, XRP has existed in a strange place within the crypto market. It has always been one of the most discussed digital assets, yet also one of the most misunderstood. Some people dismissed it too early, others held onto it through years of uncertainty. And now, as broader market conditions evolve, XRP is once again at the center of serious conversations, not just on social media, but among analysts, developers, and financial observers who usually stay far away from hype. What's interesting is that this movement doesn't look like the chaotic spikes we've seen in past crypto cycles. It feels more controlled, more structured, and more deliberate. That alone changes the conversation. When assets move purely on emotion, they rise fast and fall faster. But when attention builds steadily, when liquidity increases gradually, and when interest expands across different types of participants, that's when people start paying closer attention. Another thing that stands out right now is timing. The broader crypto market has been transitioning into a more mature phase. Regulations are being discussed more openly, institutions are more involved than ever, and the language around crypto is shifting from speculation toward infrastructure and utility. XRP has always positioned itself within that utility narrative, focusing on cross-border payments, settlement efficiency, and financial integration rather than memes or trends. Whether people agree with that approach or not, it places XRP in a unique category when market priorities change. There's also the psychological aspect of market behavior that can't be ignored. Assets that survive long periods of uncertainty tend to develop stronger communities and more resilient holders. XRP holders have gone through multiple cycles of doubt, optimism, frustration, and patience. That kind of endurance often reshapes how an asset reacts when momentum starts to return. Instead of panic buying or panic selling, you see more calculated behavior, more observation, and more strategic positioning. At the same time, on-chain activity and market structure are being watched more closely than price alone. Volume consistency, liquidity movement, and wallet behavior often tell a more accurate story than charts filled with predictions. When those indicators start showing coordination rather than chaos, it signals that something more substantial may be forming beneath the surface. Another major factor is narrative alignment. Markets don't move on data alone. They move on stories people believe in. Right now, the narrative around XRP is shifting from survival to relevance. Instead of asking whether XRP will still be around, more people are asking what role it could play if certain market conditions continue to develop. That's a very different question, and it changes how attention flows. It's also important to understand that not every movement means the same thing to every participant. For traders, it might mean volatility and opportunity. For long-term observers, it may signal validation of patience. For institutions, it could simply represent infrastructure readiness. None of these perspectives cancel each other out. They exist simultaneously, shaping how momentum builds without needing a single explosive event. What makes this moment especially interesting is that it doesn't rely on one announcement, one headline, or one viral post. It feels like a convergence. Multiple small factors aligning over time tend to produce more sustainable attention than one dramatic event ever could. That's why so many people are watching closely instead of reacting emotionally. There's also a growing awareness that the next phase of crypto adoption may not look like the last one. Instead of retail-driven hype cycles, we may see more measured growth tied to real-world applications, compliance frameworks, and long-term infrastructure development. XRP has always existed within that conversation, whether people supported it or criticized it. Now that conversation is becoming more mainstream. None of this means outcomes are guaranteed. Markets remain unpredictable, and responsible discussion always acknowledges uncertainty. But recognizing movement does not require making promises. It simply requires paying attention. And right now, attention is exactly what XRP is receiving again, from corners of the market that had been silent for a long time. This is also a reminder that timing in markets isn't just about entry points or exits. It's about understanding phases. Accumulation phases feel boring. Transition phases feel confusing. Expansion phases feel obvious only in hindsight. The challenge has always been identifying when one phase begins to overlap with another. That's why so many experienced observers are talking more about structure than price. Another layer to consider is how global financial conversations are changing. Cross-border payments, settlement speed, cost efficiency, and interoperability are becoming more important topics, not less. These are not trends driven by retail excitement, but by economic realities. Assets associated with these discussions naturally attract renewed interest when those realities become more pressing. There's also the emotional reset happening across crypto audiences. After years of extreme highs and painful lows, many participants are approaching the market with more caution and more curiosity than blind excitement. That shift alone changes how movements unfold. Instead of explosive reactions, you get gradual engagement, deeper research, and more thoughtful discussion. Watching XRP right now feels less like watching a lottery ticket and more like watching a system re-enter relevance. Whether that relevance grows, stabilizes, or evolves into something else entirely remains to be seen. But the movement itself is real, observable, and worth understanding rather than ignoring or exaggerating. And that's the key point. This isn't about shouting that something is happening. It's about recognizing why people are paying attention again. When multiple independent observers start noticing the same patterns without coordination, it's usually a signal worth respecting. As always, informed decisions come from understanding context, not reacting to noise. Anyone watching this should take the time to research, think critically, and stay aware of the broader market environment. Crypto remains a space of innovation, risk, and rapid change, and no single asset defines its future. But moments like this remind us why people keep watching, learning, and engaging, because sometimes, after long periods of uncertainty, movement doesn't arrive with chaos. It arrives quietly, steadily, and unmistakably. And right now, that quiet movement around XRP is exactly what has everyone watching. Right now, a lot of people are starting to notice that something around XRP feels different. This isn't coming from hype videos or random social media posts alone. It's coming from the way conversations are changing, the way market behavior is shifting, and the way attention is quietly building across different parts of the crypto space. This moment isn't about panic, fear, or unrealistic excitement. It's about awareness. For a long time, XRP has been one of the most talked about digital assets, but not always for the right reasons. It's gone through long periods of uncertainty, mixed sentiment, and strong opinions on both sides. And yet, despite all of that, it has remained relevant. That alone makes people pay attention when movement starts to appear again. What stands out right now is that this movement doesn't feel sudden or chaotic. It feels measured. Volume is being watched closely. Discussions are becoming more analytical, and fewer people are shouting price targets while more people are asking thoughtful questions. That kind of shift matters because markets driven by understanding tend to behave very differently from markets driven by emotion.